So I'm actually a little underslept today, and this is becoming a theme for me.
Bad dream last night?
I have a side gig with the Boogeyman. I figured if you can't beat them, join them, and I certainly can't beat them. Or anybody. I joined them all. Yeah, Boogeyman's a funny one, though. I like him. Well, I don't know if I like him. Maybe I'll wait till the monster rating. Boogeyman is long established. The phrase Boogeyman, that construction, goes back to, I prefer Boogeyman, because I don't know. It just sounds better to me. But the Boogeyman is, the phrase goes back to like the 15th century, which, how many phrases stay around, you know? Do you talk about being, what do they call it? Cabbaged? I'm cabbaged. That means you're tired, I think. They don't use that anymore. You know, if I call somebody a whippersnapper, that's
the bee's knees.
Like, those things don't stay around. They sound strange when you say them, right? But like there aren't any like updates on the Boogeyman unless it's any of the various forms that the Boogeyman takes. So 15th century, we've been saying Boogeyman for that long. And before that, it might have been Buggyman because of the Black Plague and the guys driving the buggies. The Boogeyman's coming to get you.
It's also he's made of bugs, isn't he?
Yeah, there are associations with bugs, although it goes back, so it goes also to the bugbear. The bugbear, so bug is like a word for goblin. It's also for a scarecrow. It's kind of got this ambiguous, I think it's just like,
it's like shape-shifting.
Something that, like, maybe like something that scares you, you know? Goblin, scarecrow, a bug.
So something really weird, like bugbear, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
you have bugbears and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. It's mostly a UK saying, right? Like it comes from, it's mostly from that.
Yeah.
When bugbears, like the idea of the bear, at that point was mostly hunted to extinction. Before the popularity of using the term bugbear, there were no bears anymore in the UK. They were basically wiped out. Like somewhere between I think 500 to 1,000 common era, somewhere around there. They may have still existed in things, but mostly they were like agriculture and other things and just hunting them. And so it's almost like bears themselves are sort of not like they wouldn't experience if they left the UK to go over to other parts of Europe where there's still bears, but
it sucks over here.
Yeah, but it's but the idea is almost like bears were just these scary now creatures that aren't there anymore, but they were, and they could eat you, it's like or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, think about elusive creatures that for us in the civilized world. I always think about the possum. Possums are freaky. I like them. I think they're really cool, but they're freaky. When you see them, it's like, ah! Because well, you don't usually see them, and they don't usually see you because you operate at different times. And so all the more something, that's large and can kill you, because usually possums aren't larger than you. We'll save that for future cryptid stories. Capybara possum.
The Boogeyman, right?
Yeah.
Let's just do his base level thing, right? He's in the darkness. He's in your closet. He's under your bed. Snatches you if you get up or something, or you get out of bed.
Or if you're a bad kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty ambiguous what it is.
There seems to be lots of crossovers with other, what I'll call supernatural behavioral mechanisms. They include Santa Claus, Krampus, the devil, and the Boogeyman, and various forms of the Boogeyman.
I don't want to get into this just yet, maybe, but for our segment that I started establishing in the Headless Horseman, Ghost Rules.
Ghost rules.
Yes. Boogeyman and Santa, Krampus a little bit. Boogeyman and Santa don't operate on ghost rules. They don't really have a lot of them. They're just kind of well, we can go into your house when we want. We can do what we like. We can grab you in the dark if we feel like it.
Yeah,
but it's not really certain. But there's no way to be well, here's the ritual I can do to get out of it, or here's the like maybe like the dark or night is really the like it's only like you gotta beat them out to sunrise or something like.
So it depends on what the boogeyman is, on how you avoid boogeyman encounters. Sometimes it's you don't be a bad kid, and that's gonna the standards are gonna vary from house to house. So you might be better off with someone else's boogeyman. If there are multiples, or do they have to like check? Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Okay, so there is the which one is it? The Tata Duende or El Dueño del Monte is a form of the boogeyman. I forgot to put proper attribution. I want to say it's Brazil, but I don't think it is. It's but anyway, it is a
Someone who's watching, throw a comment. Fact check that
Please,
for us.
please. This is clearly a Spanish name, but he doesn't have thumbs. He just has his fingers, and so he's very curious about children with thumbs. And so one of the ways that you can escape him is, I don't know, I don't have any thumbs. I'm all fingers. The thumb is also a finger, as we know from bronze thumb, but bronze finger. But but yeah, you can hide your thumbs. Now, there are certain boogeymen, or fall in the grand. Well, I'll have to go back and put an umbrella over these. They fall in the grand shape of boogeymen, in that okay, boogeymen either eat you or abduct you, or one and then the other. And in that case, they won't eat you and then abduct you. But they'll either abduct you, then eat you, or just abduct you.
Yeah, you'll just go missing.
Or just
like,
or just eat you. Or just eat you. And so you've got there's one called the 7 o'clock man. Sorry, francophones, I'm doing it again. Bonhomme.
Yeah. Better get inside.
I love you all though, even though I always mess up the French accent. The 7 o'clock man might have also been named, or there might be like a little crossover with a bone setter, which was an old term just to refer to a sort of a traveling healer. Okay, but this is in Quebec, our Canadian friends. And I should pronounce things correctly because I do have Canadian friends, or I did before now. So
They get eaten.
they don't get eaten. Well, sorry, the Canadian friends might have got. I hope not. That guy, the 7 o'clock man, only steals you if you're awake. If you're asleep, you're safe. Which is different from like a modern version of this, which is guess like Freddy Krueger of the Nightmare on Elm Street world, is kind of something of a modern boogeyman. He kind of invades dreams, which is not necessarily part of the full-on boogeyman story. So let me back up. So the boogeyman, it's a shape-shifting thing. The big thing's it's got claws and sharp teeth. Sometimes is also carrying a sack. So it's called the Sackman or the Bagman. Not to be confused as the person that hands over the money for, like I'm the Bagman. I just here to drop off the money, So the Bagman, the Sackman, is reminds me, and as may remind you, of Krampus. Krampus, it turns out, is like as early as the 17th century and may be pre-Christian in origin. So it might go back to like early Common Era or even before the Common Era. They don't really know. But it's largely Eastern European. Krampus gets subtracted out from our Christmas lore. We'll have to talk about that when we talk about Christmas. It's coming. Spooky season has begun. That Krampus carries away bad children in a sack, and the tradition is the eve before St. Nicholas Day. So December 5th is Krampus night. And yes, there's a phrase for that. I'll leave it alone because I forgot to write it down, and I'll do as poorly on German. So, but Krampus comes on the 5th. Now, since Santa comes on the 24th into the 25th, I think Krampus is seen as coming along at the same time. But it's stealing bad kids in a sack, maybe they get eaten. And so a lot of the Eastern European stuff winds up in certain parts of South America. Well, it was also the Sackman. I believe the Sackman was also popular in Spain. So there's this kind of like Eastern Europe, and then it kind of like swoops down, and then you wind up with the Sackman. And so in a lot of versions of the Boogeyman in South America wind up being sack people, just carrying bags and things. And it's like, well, does it come from the same thing? Or do Krampus and the Sackman come from the same thing, right? So,
Okay. It's like darkness, right? Like almost like in a weird sense, right? Like the boogeyman is like, it's like a he literally is like on a threshold, right? Don't cross, like he comes through closets, beds, like weird, like spaces, right? That like, you're like, that are scary, spooky. And it's
yeah,
like, it's almost like he's like some kind of like proto entity, because he's not a ghost. Like he doesn't operate by ghost rules, right? It's got all this other stuff that's spun out of it. Like you were saying, like the guy with the weird thumbs, but there's also like variants in, like, there's I know in like, there's like Celtic that's like the Fika, I think, or something like that, and it's almost like a little goblin that's like a shadow being, and it lures people, like if you're mean to it, it lures you away and like to a cliffside or something. But it's more like tricksters and stuff like that. But the Boogeyman doesn't seem like a trickster. He's kind of like pre that. He's not a deity, and it's not a. It's just like this weird like enforcement of the threshold of like it's like something that's like before a lot of that stuff, it's like before we start assigning like, okay, this has like a name, this is like this is a purpose, this can be reasoned with. The boogeyman can't be reasoned with, it just takes you away, it's like it's like there's nothing, it's very weird in that sense. Like
well,
it's like an early, like it's almost like everything, like a lot of these other threshold enforcers kind of seem to get spun out of this thing that's like, I don't know, almost like yeah, like I said, like a proto entity of sorts,
right, right. Yeah, and it's interesting. So we think of the boogeyman as being in the closet a lot of the time.
Did it always originate with the closet or under the?
I
Okay.
don't think so, because here's the thing. How many people had closets in the 15th century? Like actual closets with clothes and things in them.
Yeah.
Like,
or beds sometimes.
yeah, right. I mean, you might all be in the same bed, or all the kids, all 17 of them, before they get. That's why you need a boogeyman. That's expensive.
Hopefully the boogeyman will come today.
Like we need to thin out these kids, man. Yeah, I can see my ribs. We need a boogeyman.
Well, I guess like the bugbear thing, like the idea is like it's a creature sort of in the woods, or like if it's spun out of some early like, say like hobgoblin type things, like like, which are like evil,
seems about right.
which are like, because there's like, they're kind of like even more evil than regular, goblins. They're much more like, they could be attached to places and stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of like. It could just be in the woods or in the something that's gonna, if you go into the dark, you're going. Like if you get away and you get into the dark, kids, something's gonna get you. Like,
yeah. And so there's part of this is like we talk about the idea of like the primal fear, that's just sort of either embedded in our consciousness or it's just kind of that passed down from beyond the point where you're likely to get eaten anyway. Because there's an obsession here with those two things, being eaten by something and being abducted and taken away. Now, being abducted and taken away falls into a category that we probably shouldn't cover. It's just probably, they don't like being talked about. The Fae. And so that really comes from what I'll just call the UK. And if you don't like that, put it in the comments. Let's have a discussion. I just call it the UK. So the Fae, and they're what we would mostly probably call like fairies, and a lot of people think of them as being like good, friendly spirits, but not people that are familiar with the stories of the Fae, because they abduct children and they swap them out for their own kids, and then when their kids get old enough, living off the living off whoever they swapped them with, they think they could come back and get them or something. So the idea of the changeling is in that world. The idea of like, and so you would have this situation. Actually, the real history of this is quite disturbing because there were many people that suspected that their children were swapped with changelings, and they would do things like burn them with things and do kind of crazy things to them to try to figure out, it's kind of like the, build a bridge out of her kind of approach.
Yeah.
Like, no, like, what are you doing?
Because our fear of the other has definitely evolved
Yeah,
to be rational,
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't put it in the comments if you want to talk about that. Yeah. Yeah. We're a weird species. And so yeah, but the Fae abduct people and take them somewhere else that you might not be able to get away from. The space aliens abduct people and take them to a place where you might not be able to get away from. Some stories of them probably involve eating people, but so there's these overlaps of these common. In fact, they must, right? There's so many alien stories. They must sometimes eat people.
They get hungry too.
They get hungry too. It's far from everywhere to here. Yeah. So yeah. So getting eaten and scared of the dark, and getting abducted. These are like these things that seem to be like very much in our common stories. And so when it comes to so part of that's like, well, what can you see that's out there? Or if you have to travel from one place to another, you're traveling among things that aren't lands that aren't populated, but it probably have to travel overnight. There is real fear out there of what's, beyond the campfire, beyond your source of light and beyond what you really know. So I think like that fear might just be there, but what's with the sack? What's with a lot of times they are in the in this old woman or old man kind of shape, or like the long nails and sharp teeth. I mean, I guess that just kind of makes sense in general. Sometimes they are ghosts. So talk about ghost rules. So if you define the boogeyman as something that comes after kids or kids of various forms, and is also associated with parental warning structures. It's instructive that the word monster actually is derived from the word warning, like as in like an omen. And so the idea being that like if you run into one of these, you're out of step with the world, like you're doing something wrong for a monster to show up, And so the idea that you've parents using this as a warning to get their kids to comply. Well, in Egypt, I'm just going to do my best on the name. Abu Rigal Masluka, something. It means the man with the burnt leg, or the man with the skinned leg, is a ghost that was bad as a kid, which is why they have a burnt leg or a skinned leg. Because they were punished for being bad, and they come back to get bad kids, or that man comes back to get bad kids. So there's that. So sometimes they are just people. There's a figure that is a little wobbly as to exactly, because there's some confusion with another one. Is it Poto Muma? I have it written down. That's not right. Pugo Mamu. It's a monster from the Philippines that goes after kids that are up after dark or out after dark. And it is headless. It is a headless creature, talking about headless things that wander around. And it's crossed over with a spirit called Pugot, is Pugot. And this is a headless priest, specifically a headless priest. So there's some crossover on whether the Pugo Mamu is self-beheaded, is referred to as the self-beheaded, or whether that is actually referring to this headless priest. But something that might be self-beheaded is wandering around without a head, and it eats things through the hole in its neck. It eats children whole. It eats them in their entirety. So that's kind of scary. Depending on what the overlap is with this headless priest and why or whether it's just a coincidental overlap. That I mean, I think Pugo means headless. So it's it's not that far of why this would happen. But yeah, so very strange and all these different shapes that he takes. I found a really cool, another headless one. So going with our little headless horseman world, there's a headless one called Bloody Bones. Now that name comes from England once again, and all this talking about all the Boogeyman is making me sweat. Bloody Bones is a headless skeleton, presumably a bloody skeleton, that dances, and that is still apparently one of the boogeymen of the southern United States. Listeners in the southern United States, do you know tales of Bloody Bones? Did you hear about this as a kid? You tell this to your kids? Why? Why do you do that? Doesn't it keep them up? And also, Tommy Rawhead, also known as just Rawhead, which has a skinned head. And sometimes they're thought of as being the same, one and the same. Bloody Bones.
Do they like hurt
Tommy
themselves
Rawhead.
as a kid and now they've come back to get?
Don't know.
I think
know.
it doesn't. I think the Coco, the Boogeyman,
yeah, also known as El Coco.
Yeah, sometimes has a skull head too. Like thing like a skeletal head. I think. Coconut is named after that.
Yeah.
But it's also a shapeshifter. It's depending on the similar to traditional boogeymen, the shapeshifter type deal. But
yeah. So it's so there's a wide spectrum of them.
I kind of feel like the thread tying the boogeyman together is that he's no fun. It's it's like if you want to have fun. Or you want to be a kid who has fun or explore the unknown. It's like he's the rule, the rule
He
of
kind of works
no
for the
fun.
system.
Yeah, he's basically you can't do anything cool. He's the opposite of a chaos entity or even a trickster. He's not really there to trick you. He's just there to prevent you from doing anything you might want to do that's considered bad by the authority. I want to stay up at night. No, you're gonna get eaten.
Yeah.
It's I want to get out of bed, and nope, something's gonna drag you underneath of it. I want to check out something beyond this campfire. You're dead. It's kind of you don't know if there's someone in that police car on the side of the road that you just sped past. Is he gonna pull you over or not? Are you really going too fast? It's just there to enforce literal boundaries in certain respects, and
Bob, in your research of all these different entities, okay,
Yeah.
do any of them specifically go after adults? Because I noticed you mentioned specifically children in some instances, but are there any where it's they go after adults?
Okay, so there's so it's funny because adults historically, I think you've got the incubus and the succubus, which aren't exactly boogeymen, but because it's just about it's for men having lustful thoughts, otherwise known as men. and then you've got women trying to be left alone and get a good night's sleep. I don't think they necessarily have to have lustful thoughts to get attacked by an incubus. That sounds about right. So the but those aren't really boogeymen. There is one really freaky one, the bubak, Bubak, and it's kind of weird, right? Okay, well, of course, all this is. Um, it mimics the sound of a lost child or a baby, and then when its victim is near, it kills the victim, um, and it weaves their souls into its clothing. Now that I was having problems getting corroboration on because it was like, is that a contemporary take? But I've heard it in a couple places. It weaves their souls into its clothing, and that gives it power or whatever. I mean that jives with like weird like magic traditions and things like that. But I just don't know if that's just like a late add-on or not.
I remember hearing stories here in the States,
Uh-huh.
very similar kind of mimicking entity, where you think you hear a baby crying out in the woods, and these people would like, they would go and check it out, or, people would say, if you hear this at night, don't go there. Like this area's been known for whatever.
Hmm.
So it seems like it's more than just a check thing, but
Yeah,
Isn't that
and
like don't like coyotes or
foxes.
foxes
I think
make the
foxes will
foxes
mimic a
make
wounded
a
animal of some kind to draw
that does, yeah,
in
like yeah, it's like,
other
they
creatures.
yeah, they kind of
well, it's
yeah.
interesting though. Is a fox, is it carnivorous, or is a fox a scavenger?
Good, yeah, like is it a predator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. Not carnivorous.
I think it's probably an opportunist, but so if you think about like things that might eat wounded animals, I mean large animals, right? But also like birds. So like it might be trying to, because birds aren't, sorry people, we try to keep this a nice discussion, but birds aren't necessarily going to wait until the animal's dead. Sorry guys, sorry, it's kind of gruesome.
That's life.
Yeah, and yo, at least it wasn't the Pugo Mamu, because that will eat you alive whole. You don't even need to be wounded and on the brink of consciousness. So yeah, so maybe birds, but yeah, good point. But I don't know that they're really predators of that because they're kind of small. I mean, they're what, like 16 inches, 18 inches, maybe
Something like that. Yeah, like a
in
little.
height.
Yeah.
Yeah, the small dog, like,
Yeah.
so-
And I don't think they really. When I see foxes, because around here there are foxes, I see them by themselves. I don't see them hunting in groups like wolves will hunt in groups. But yeah. So yeah, good question. I'm gonna tell you people, our fox experts out there, or anyone that had the chance to research it, let us know. Are foxes predators, or do they just think it's funny when something comes along and there's just nothing there?
The one's like, dude, impersonate the dying animal. Go ahead, do it.
This is our humor. Yeah, so let me see. I do have some notes here, but they're drawn in a circle because that's just the way I think. You ever encounter the boogeyman? You guys ever have any like memories of the boogeyman? Like as a kid, do you ever have any of these bleary-eyed moments where you're like, "What that expletive was that?" Whatever your choice expletive at that age would have been. Yeah, I'll
no,
I'll, I'll ask you to.
yeah, no, not really. I mean, I like have the memory of being like scared of like something under your bed or something in your closet kind of thing. But like, you know, but I don't know if that just came from like seeing like bad movies. Like I
Yeah.
think of specifically like,
Well, you
you
had
know,
access to some movies.
I was specifically thinking like, um, even though like you might feel like silly by today's standard, but I think of something like I think I saw like Poltergeist, the first one when I was too
Ah,
young to see that, and like
yeah.
that kid getting dragged under your bed, from the creepy clown thing, and
Yeah.
then like something like wasn't there a I think of like I remember like a rerun of because I don't even know when that was on, but like like Tales from the Dark Side, and there's like it's like a
Ah,
creature that was under like it's like in a house. And there's a creature under the bed that like tries to eat people. So like I think obviously probably because it's supposed to be like the boogeyman, kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But I don't really specifically remember like like that like specifically knowing like like I'm thinking of like as a little kid like people like being like don't get up, something's under your bed or something like that. Like I don't remember my parents telling me that kind of stuff. So it had to
Yeah.
come from somewhere, either like things you talk to other kids about or weird stuff you shouldn't watch when you're a kid, like movies and
Yeah.
horror movies. So, it's like, so, but yeah, but I don't like, yeah, but I don't think I've had like specifically boogeyman like encounter type things. It's like I would think of just being generally scared of stuff trying to get you at night. I think is which is dark house kid wandering around at night is definitely
Yeah.
creepy, just when
Yeah.
you're small. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar boat there. I don't remember ever like actively being scared of a thing, like parents saying like, "Well, boogeyman, what you got to go to bed." Like I don't remember anything like that. And even looking back as a kid, I don't remember having any kind of like preconceived idea of what the thing actually was. It's just more of like
Right.
an ethereal concept of the boogeyman, like this thing might come out of the closet or under the bed. I've always had this weird idea of like things grabbing my feet from under the bed, kind of like what you were just saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was about it. And I think kind of like what you
Yeah.
were saying, Bill, was more of like friends talking about it or something like that, or older siblings, trying to scare the younger ones or something like that. But yeah, nothing from
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, that was like the same brother that coerced me into summoning Bloody Mary. Told me that this is like the mashed up version. E.T. was in the closet, and if I would close the closet door, E.T. would give me candy. So this is kind of like the fox, like you
Yeah,
get
yeah.
there and nothing happens, and the fox is just laughing at you from the top bunk. Yeah, that didn't work out, but he probably wouldn't mean to close it because the boogeyman. So I don't know. So it comes together in that regard, but yeah, I used to be afraid of. I remember talking about the red eyes and the green eyes and these eyes that I was convinced or believed were there in the dark. And it's funny because like you'll hear about these people have an encounter with something and it'll be like it had glowing eyes, and it's like why would that be? Like what would cause light? What would cause eyes to emit light? You know. Um, Now we've talked about like reflections in the eyes that reflect back what seems makes it look like glowing eyes, but I think that's because it's supernatural. It does weird things. But okay, so like, what if aliens and the boogeyman and the fae are just like our evolving understanding? Well, I shouldn't say evolving because it implies a direction. These are shifting explanations for unexplained things that are outside of that don't follow the rules. Although, I mean, we're talking about this as a rule enforcing
Yeah,
mechanism,
but I
But
mean, rules in that he doesn't have specific like ghost. Like, there's nothing you can kind of do to get
yeah,
rid of the boogeyman. Like,
right,
you can't like wear a certain pendant or like run across the bridge or whatever it
right.
is. Like, it's more just like be obedient, and even that might not be good enough,
Well,
depending
hold
on
on.
the circumstance. So,
Hold on for a second though. What about like calling for your parents? Does that make the
Ah.
boogeyman go away? Like they walk in and it's like, no, there's nothing here. It's okay.
Some versions of the boogeyman, and I don't think I noted which particular ones, you can scare away with noise. You kind of scare away with noise, but not all of them, right? And so that's where so in the States, probably because like
what
we're
if you
such
go to
a
call for your
country of
parents? The boogeyman gets you before they get there.
yeah,
But,
well, they work for your parents, so
yeah,
maybe you
yeah,
don't want to call because you have to tattletale on yourself then. Yeah,
yeah. What were you doing out of bed?
yeah.
I wasn't doing anything. I swear, it just came out of the closet.
Got me. Yeah. So yeah. Now I always think when I think of the boogeyman, I often think of Ghostbusters, the cartoon, and the episode where they get hired to catch the boogeyman by some kid or two kids hire the Ghostbusters, which goes to tell you that for anyone out there with a small business, you can probably relate. Sometimes you just have to take the job you're offered. Sometimes you have to give a discount.
Well, I feel like the Ghostbusters were notoriously behind on their rent all the time. I mean, like,
Well, yeah.
you know, it's like, I mean, as a business, it's kind of a
It was
hard
before
one to.
Airbnb, and they couldn't rent out that bottom floor for like. I mean, weren't they in New York?
Yeah,
That place had to be super expensive. Why did you get that? That had to be.
Well, I guess it's New York in the '80s. Maybe the property values were not.
You know, actually, yeah,
because
because sometimes when New York was higher crime, it was more affordable.
And maybe they're thinking more of population density, you know, like a lot of people have ghosts in a very confined area, and maybe it made the most sense.
Yeah, and maybe we just saw the highlights. We didn't see all the things that were like, yeah, we went there and there was nothing there. But we told them there's something there anyway, so we could make our.
It's like when you have like the hunter shows, like they never want to do like a thing where it's like, we went to this place, it was haunted, and absolutely nothing happened.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it just was really boring.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we're gonna have to call in some people to make some noise.
Yeah, like it's like, oh no! And I turned the camera into the like.
Did you hear that?
Like the night vision camera. Like, oh god!
So in the Ghostbusters cartoon version, they're working for these two kids that the boogeyman keeps coming, and they okay, the boogeyman keeps coming, and for some reason Egon has a pompadour and white hair. Probably for merchandising reasons in the cartoon version. He didn't have that in the movie. But and the boogeyman's realm is like very MC Escher. It just goes between closets. So it's a more modern take on the boogeyman when closets definitely existed. And the Ghostbusters pop out of somebody's closet. They're chasing the boogeyman. They pop out of another closet, and the boogeyman runs through first. And the kid's like, ah! And then the Ghostbusters come through, and the kid's like, yeah, get him, Ghostbusters.
Well, at least they're
Like,
popularity.
I guess it was a local closet, because I mean, how far did that advertising go? You couldn't answer a call in Oregon. Plus, you'd be actually probably better because you might be dealing with a different boogeyman. There you go, Boogeyman.
Boogeyman.
Proximity alert again. But yeah, so that's what I always think of when I think of the boogeyman, and Boogity Boogity Boo, Mr. Boogity, I think is a take on the boogeyman, who left like green footprints all over the place when he walked on the ceiling and stuff. Yeah, so that's what I tend to think of. Now, a few years ago, just because it's still scary on some levels, there was a movie called The Boogeyman, which I believe was a spin on a story by Stephen King.
I believe you're correct.
And again, it comes back to this thing like kids believe in the boogeyman, parents don't believe in the boogeyman, so no one believes you. Okay, actually, and this goes to the movie Halloween with Michael Myers. For those of you that haven't seen this 700-year-old movie, almost as old as the term, the boogeyman, the Halloween is about a psychopathic serial killer, a human psychopathic serial killer. And the kid that witnesses this guy at first has a bunch of kids come after him at school because he's scared of the boogeyman, and they're like, the boogeyman's gonna get you, the boogeyman's gonna get you, and they try and freak him out. So when he sees this real life psychopath carrying a body or something, he just figures it's the boogeyman. So he goes in, he tells people that the boogeyman is after him, and no one believes him because the boogeyman's not real. So there's this credibility thing that seems to carry over to the 2023 movie as well. And and no one believes these kids that believe in the boogeyman, and adults don't believe in the boogeyman. But then those adults go and tell their kids that the boogeyman's real, presumably to keep them from being awake, which sounds like really like I don't know, like you've finished a fifth before you made that idea up. Like, yeah, like why would this keep their kids? Why would it get them to go to sleep? Like going to sleep is something you decide to do, you know?
Yeah, and also
There
like
wouldn't be insomniacs at all.
yeah, there is a weird thing of like, you know, trying to make a place you're supposed to feel safe, like where you're sleeping, like a hostile environment, you know, like both psychologically and like, and I guess the sort of, and if you believe the Boogeyman is real, something physically terrifying, you know, that's that feels
When
like
you're
a
all
very,
sharing a bed, aren't you disincentivized to get those kids to stay in the bed? Because like if that time comes when they have to, you know, deal with their business, you want them. You're sharing a bed. Why are you trying to scare them about the? Anyway, just
it
a
probably is
thought.
a
I mean,
thing,
I don't know.
yeah.
Anybody else feel the same
Well,
on it?
yeah, I don't know. I was thinking of like just the yeah. It's just it is a weird. But it makes sense with the like the curfew one, like the things like that, because it's like, oh, only bad kids stay out after, you know, what like you were saying, 7 o'clock or something like that. You know, it's like. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, if you're out at 7 o'clock, you're probably up to no good. Like,
Got
causing
gotten by
trouble.
the 7 o'clock.
You're gonna get taken out. Yeah, like you know, or like going wandering in the woods at night. Yeah, probably not a great idea. You know, like you might get eaten by a bugbear or bogart or whatever is out there. You know, it's like that kind of makes sense because that is pretty, you know, especially pre, you know, light, you know, systems of having
Yeah.
like easily portable lighting. You know, it's you know, again, it's
Yeah.
dark is scary. I mean, like, as anyone who's ever been camping, and it gets really dark, you know, that's and you go wandering, it's really hard to see what's in front of you, even with a headlamp or flashlight. So it's like, so it makes that kind of makes sense in a sense of like instilling some type of dread in them. Maybe not supernatural dread, but it's a, you know, it kind
Yeah.
of, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it just got out of hand. But,
Yeah.
you know, I think the most likely explanation is the one that, Bill, you actually offered. The boogeyman works for the system.
Yeah.
The deeper you go, the weirder it gets.
Yeah.
And at some level, deep down, is the boogeyman. Now, so the boogeyman enforces rules. How would you weaponize it if you could? And I'm going to suggest that it's been weaponized. It's actually yeah, it's helping the sleep aid industry. You could get between closets now that people tend to have them, like they did in the Ghostbusters. You could definitely spy. You could abduct people. Again, this is deep state stuff. You know, this is the kind of they're usually accused of cannibalism on some level too. You know, I think you could weaponize it. I think, and I think there's it's ripe for abuse.
Well, I think
Okay,
you
so
already got the whole, you know, system of like, there's cameras everywhere. You never know who's watching you.
Before the technology caught up with it, they might have relied on an older technology,
Yeah,
a technology that definitely predates the 15th century. I think it's all coming together here.
So I'm going to say, now that we know that the governments around the world are utilizing the boogeyman for surveillance and enforcement, I'm going to encourage all of our watchers and listeners, get in touch with your local governments. We need to cut funding for the use of the boogeyman. That needs to stop.
Or wait, no, hold on, because we might be able to work something out. Terms and conditions, okay? And you know you can trust the government when they agree.
As much as you can trust the boogeyman.
So think about what this could do for your morning commute. Maybe it's good if this doesn't get widespread. What could this do for your morning commute? Because like you wouldn't need cars or car insurance anymore. Yeah. No,
Are you talking about like
I'm gonna
jumping
put
from
together a
closets to
dossier.
closets? I don't know though. But the thing is, you have to deal with the boogeyman every time you jump through your closet. So your morning commute might end up with you being, I don't know, eaten.
A whole other kind of insurance, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's like I mean, like if you have to jump from a closet.
at least
to a
you wouldn't
closet,
have to go through an office day though.
And what if it only works at nighttime though? that means like you got to get up like super like early, but it's still dark up to get to.
Well, how do you think? Why do you think CEOs got up at 4 in the morning?
Well,
Or
that's just
3?
because
Or
they
2?
just like to brag about stuff.
Yeah.
They are
They
the
don't. They don't. They're still up. Is it?
they're like they are
Well,
they
they're the
are
system.
boogeyman.
See, yeah.
They want to enforce rules. They like the things the way they are. They don't want anyone to step out of line. They want everything to be under control. You better do what they say. And they are always like probably in some kind of shady place, like a dark room or a dark closet or hiding under your bed.
And you know what? I thought we might solve this one because it's an old
Jobs
mystery.
just grabbed in my sleep. That would be pretty creepy. I think as well.
Yeah, like which CEO would you be most scared of actually being the boogeyman?
I don't know.
Actually,
Probably all of them.
that makes me nauseous to
Yeah, I don't
actually
know.
think about that.
I think they're all.
I think I would rather just get rid of all my closets.
Yeah.
All of them. I mean,
That's why they have such huge walk-in closets and spend so much money. There's giant, like they always like,
I
are
don't
like,
like
oh,
it.
and here's my giant walk-in closet. That's because they're all boogeymen.
I felt better about this before that. Maybe it. Boogeyman, please don't be the deep state. Maybe this is just disinformation. Maybe they couldn't beat them. Like I said, can't beat them, join them. I want a side gig with the Boogeyman.
Okay, so let's hang with that. Okay, so given the opportunity to
Yeah.
work alongside the Boogeyman, work out some kind of an arrangement, would you do it? Bobby, you brought it up. Go.
Yeah, but like I don't really like kids. Like so maybe if you just scared them. Like maybe if it's like the low level, or if like he doesn't really do that. You know, maybe actually it's like petty theft. That's kind of more my level. Steal someone's remote control, get something out of their fridge. Look, guys, I do run a business. White Rabbit Hypnosis. So maybe I don't have to do this. Maybe you can help. Go book a session. And if you're scared of the Boogeyman, definitely go book a session. But because we can work it all out. This can all come together. The I want a side gig, even if it's just making sure people. How about this? I want a side gig making sure non-boogeymen don't come through the closet, because I probably could scare them. They wouldn't expect anybody to be there.
It's weird that the boogeyman don't hide in like
hire me.
like don't hide in like smaller things that slightly resemble closets but aren't. Like the people aren't usually worried about the boogeyman in like the bathroom.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
Generally,
just shadow people, because you
yeah,
already made it there.
or a pantry, or
You
like,
threw the liminal space
it's
of the
It's
dark.
like, oh no, the boogeyman is in the pantry stealing my Fritos. Like,
All right, so there's a boogeyman. Real quick aside on this one. Luomo Nero. Sorry, Italian folks. Who parents will knock on the table and say, "It's Luomo Nero. He's coming to get the people that won't eat their soup."
Is that Babu? Babu, he's also.
I don't know. It might be another variation on the same. Yeah, but it's if you don't eat your soup, or probably other veggies and things like that, but probably largely soup. Because again, think about the time and what are people eating for the most part. You know, soup. You can put everything in soup. So if they don't eat their soup, this guy can come and get them.
It's always about rules and
he doesn't eat you. He just abducts you.
That's a lot safer.
Yeah, you're not worth eating because you don't eat your soup.
Yeah, I guess you're kind of thin and scrawny. They don't want to. You think that there would be one that would eat maybe they only eat the kids that eat all their soup. Like,
those are the other ones. Those are the ones with no head.
Yeah.
You guys want a side gig?
No, I definitely don't. I don't like nighttime. I'm not a big nighttime person. So yeah, I don't want to. Not that I'm actually scared of the dark, but I'm just like more of a daytime person. I think, I like sunshine.
Right.
And it's like having worked some nighttime jobs. I don't like. It's very bad for your health. The boogeyman probably will mess up your circadian rhythm pretty bad.
Hopefully your boogeyman is the 7 o'clock man anyway. Because as
Yeah,
long as you're
yeah,
asleep, he can't get you. So.
yeah.
Dan, you
I
want a
would,
side gig?
yeah, maybe. I think that could be some fun. I would want to take more of the role of the trickster. So,
Uh,
maybe move their keys from their hook where they have the keys into like the refrigerator, put it in the freezer. Take their banana guacamole, maybe, like do crazy things like that and just watch and see what
steal
happens.
the long fabled banana guacamole. I would like to take their keys. I would only do this to luxury car people, actually. Sorry, guys. I would take their keys through to another closet and switch them with someone else's keys somewhere else.
I was just thinking that as you started to say that.
And maybe even like the same make. So they're like out there like trying to get things to, or like they're trying to open their door because now it's doors just unlock when you walk near them, right? With those.
But the thing about having a
unlock your
side
car.
gig with the Boogeyman, you got to do all the like. It's kind of like having a coworker who's just like the worst, right? Because like even if you want to be trickster,
Yeah.
and less malevolent, you still got this person who's eating people.
Yeah, that's like that.
It's like on a regular basis, and like it's just constantly he's all about the rules and also about eating people or kidnapping. It's just like this is like probably not the best thing, to not the best person you want to be working with on a regular basis, and like if at all,
It sounds like we landed on a solid. It depends.
yeah. Like yeah, so even though you're like, yeah, I could go just have like play pranks on people I don't like or just be a little mischievous. The guy you're working with, who may or may not be your boss, is definitely doing terrible things. So it's like,
I
There's so many things we could say related to that. So
yes.
many, so many things.
Again, the CEO of your
it's back to that again. Yeah,
still
hold on.
murdering people. Your coworker or boss is murdering people and or just enforcing rules that are seemingly arbitrary. Yeah.
I'd like to make a deal with the boogeyman. I want the boogeyman to work with me for a different system. The system of witches.
He doesn't like that though. He just does what he wants. Like
I
that's
think
the
it's
whole
because he
thing.
does. I think the boogeyman has a bigger imagination than people realize because,
He's
and I
probably
think,
tired of doing the same thing all these years. He's
I
probably
think,
looking to change careers.
I think a lot of this is disinformation. I think the boogeyman's not as bad as we think.
I don't know. There's a lot of better people to work for. It seems like he is bad.
There are fewer and fewer better people to work for.
At least if we're going for like other spirits, there might be some more fun things to work for.
Yeah,
Like,
no, you're probably right. You're definitely right.
I don't know. I mean, like, it's
But
like
you got to get the job you can. See previous note. So, all right, is he scary? Are you scared of the boogeyman? I'll vote first since I'm the one that can't shut up. It depends. It depends. I'm gonna give the boogeyman. I'm gonna give the boogeyman 3 monsters, 3 complete monsters, because the one without a head is kind of scary. I think it's scary at the right time in the right context. Not the boogeyman per se, but the unknown thing in the dark that could kind of be anything.
but isn't that's the boogeyman though? Isn't that like that is what it is?
Yeah, and that's why it's a solid 3. Because the boogeyman, see, the boogeyman in the States doesn't have that shape. It doesn't have the shape of like specific things. But in certain places, there are like specific forms of the boogeyman. And I think it's because like the United States is one big smear of everything. Like we just have all kinds of different regional versions, but the boogeyman in the big version is just like, well, whatever. So I think the well, whatever is scarier than some of the various forms. And there were some that we just really didn't get into because there are so many forms. So yeah, I'd say, yeah, actually that's kind of scary. I'll give it 3 out of 5 monsters. It's like not scary. Like we had this conversation, and tonight I won't be particularly scared of the boogeyman in the same way that like, I don't know, researching and talking about Bloody Mary forever kind of like did give me a little pause in my bleary-eyed half asleepness, But if I'm wrong, I'll let you know.
Add a little caveat?
Yeah.
If you're the way you sleep in your bed,
Uh,
if it faces a closet, are you fine sleeping with that closet completely open? Like,
no.
yeah, yeah,
No. Yeah, you know what? That actually,
just
that
like,
is the question that unveils it, isn't it?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like,
I'm gonna say three. I'm still sticking with three, but actually it's no longer hypothetical because yeah, no, I don't like that. I also don't like this room's all blacked out a lot of the time because and at night if you look into this room, I don't want to look into this room. So yeah, Boogeyman in the form of just the darkness that could have something in it. Yeah, that's kind of scary. If I talk too long on it, I might have changed my rating.
You know, of all the other things that we encountered, so to speak, this one doesn't rate very high for me. And I don't know if it's because of I have a hard time thinking about what it could be as opposed to like Bloody Mary in the mirror. And we've talked about my feelings on like mirrors and seeing things and like
Yeah, yeah.
or even the old hag, you know, the concept of that waking up and seeing this like face over top of you kind of. But for me the boogeyman is just kind of like more of like this ethereal like thing that doesn't really have a real description. So for me I have a hard time just kind of like being scared of it, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rate this one kind of low. I'm going to think, you know, maybe like two monsters and maybe like that one without the head, you know, with just the gaping hole, you know.
All right.
But going back to the closets, for instance, I don't like having the closets open either at night. And in fact, if they are open in just a little bit, I will go and I will close the closet.
See, that's like
Man.
that's the real kicker. Yeah. Oh, but you didn't say. Do you want to encounter the boogeyman? We didn't. You didn't answer that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It depends if the pay is right.
If the pay is right.
Yeah, if as far as the thing I'm scared of, the ambiguous thing, and probably not. Probably because of the fact that it doesn't really have I don't know the rule book. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
I think I'd be okay with it. I think I would be willing to. I think we could strike a deal of some kind, you know, because like that, primarily after kids. So I think you know that puts me at an advantage where it doesn't seem like it's going to come at me.
that's
I
right.
think we might be able to work something out. I think I have some great business opportunities that I think we could leverage together, and I think we could work out something in both of our best interests. I think we can make it happen.
I don't want to encounter the boogeyman. I don't think I like in just any. I mean, if the idea is like shadow getting you, you know, I don't really want. There's something dragging you into some, you know, disappeared dimension or something like that. I don't think that's something I'd particularly feel like it. But yeah, so let's see, scary. It's weird. Like I'm kind of with this thing. I might go for like just maybe I'll go for 4 monster heads on this one. I was gonna be around where Chris was at 3.
Just the heads?
Just no four full monsters.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 monsters. Full 4 monsters on this one. I think like I was gonna be about 3 where you were at, but I kind of feel like just the fact of like yeah, like I don't particularly like the dark. I mean, I can deal. I don't know. It's fine, but I'm just like I don't really like it. Never have. I definitely almost always end up inevitably sleeping on the side of the bed that faces the closet. I've moved a lot. Um, and it depends the type of closet, but usually like if it's like the sliding door, shallow, I'm not too worried. But yeah, but if it's open to like the empty void, and it's nighttime, maybe I just have an overactive imagination. Maybe there's just something there. I don't know. But I don't like it either. And like and the fact is, to me, like that's like the boogeyman, right? It's like this fear. Like it's just like something you're afraid of when you're not quite awake. You're not quite asleep. You're not, you know, it's something. So it's like, so I think, and that's, even though it doesn't have a shape, it doesn't have a form, it's kind of like, that's actually, I feel like more scary. Like, you know, because it's just like, it is kind of primal fear, you know, and like, and so I think fear is frightening. So I'm gonna give it a 4. I think that's where I'll land on that.
I want to see that dancing one. What was it called? Like that is a dancing skeleton, right? What was that?
Bloody bones. Bloody bones. Yeah. Yeah, there's a oh man, there's one of the English ones has iron teeth. What's his name? Tommy something. Tom Dawkin has iron teeth to eat children.
I feel like we need to create like a set of like tarot cards that has like all the various boogeymen on it. I feel like that dancing skeleton one, that's like spot on for that has tarot card written all over it.
Keep your eyes out for the Wandering Monsters Bestiary deck and companion book.